My name's Javier, and I'm an alcoholic. And I was thinking the same thing, so now I'm a monkey. I've been called worse. And I'd like to, first of all, welcome anybody to Student Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're sitting here and you have no desire to be here, and you're wondering what the hell this is all about, I totally get it. On July 30th of 1989, which was my last day out there, I had no intention of getting sober. I got a sobriety date of July 31st of 1989. I've been sober a little while, and I truly had no intention of staying sober. I didn't want to get sober. I knew nothing about it. I'll start off with a funny story, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but I'm just going to tell you my story. So the way I found out about the programs was this guy told me, towards the end, I was pretty bad. I was a full drunk and an everything else kind of guy. And this guy said, do you want to go to a meeting of Cocaine Anonymous? What I thought he said was, do you want to go do cocaine anonymously? And so I know none of you guys are like me. I'm a kid from the hood. I didn't know I was from the hood until I left. And I thought I was raised in a good area until I left. And anyways, so towards the end of my drinking and using, I couldn't be in a room by myself. So when he said, we're going to go do cocaine, we're going to go do it anonymously, I said, I'm in. So I went to my first meeting of Cocaine Anonymous, and in that meeting, there's a leader, and the guy shares for a couple minutes, like we do in AA, and he's sharing, and I'm thinking, please hurry up. When do we do the Cocaine Anonymous? And so he goes, okay, we're going to take a break, and I think, oh, okay. So I go into my pocket, like a good little person that I am, and I pull out my stuff, and I put it on the table, and my friend says, no, we're going to do that after. So I didn't think that I had to come here and be sober. I just thought I had to come here. Now, let me tell you about my youth. I was born a scared little kid. You know, as a little kid, I was scared of everything. I've always wanted to do good, but I didn't know how because I was afraid. You know, I was raised by two parents that did the best they could. You know, one of them's still a devout Catholic. My father's gone to heaven, and they did the best they could. The problem was that he always said this: "Why can't you be like?" He never said Javier. He said, "Why can't you be like?" So I always just felt inferior. No matter what I did, no matter how I did it, no matter how I tried to please him, I could never please him, and that's all I wanted to do. So if I wanted an award, you know, at the little park that I grew up in, there was a wall that had these 3 awards. One of them was like really good. The middle one was really good, and the other one was like the best. Well, one year I won the middle one, and all he said was, "Why didn't you win the other one?" And I thought, you know what, dude, I'm tired. I'm 8, 9 years old, and I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to do what I want because that's what I want to do. You know, and what happened for me was I hung around with these kids. I grew up in the middle of, now it's called Boyle Heights. When I was there, it was called East LA. I grew up with a group of people, and I don't know how you guys grew up, but the way I grew up is there was about 13 or 14 of us that ran around. We weren't a gang. We were just friends, and we ran around, and we did all these little things, and we did most of our partying and most of our drinking in basements, basement and garages. And I was about 13 years old or 12 years old. I can't tell you the exact date, but I remember we were at my little friend's birthday party, and his mom walked in with a 12-pack of Schlitz malt liquor. Now, before I go any further, I need to tell you that my father's a full-blown alcoholic. But my father's the weird kind of alcoholic. He's the kind of alcoholic that drinks, but goes to work every day and brings his check and hands it to my mom every week. But the moment he hands her the check, he goes into the garage and he starts to drink. Now, that's not that bad until he walks out. When he walks out, 2 people walk out, either the happy one or the mad one. And it was usually with me. I'm the eldest of 6. Now, I'd like to tell you that I was a good kid. That's a lie, and I don't want to start off with a lie. So I wasn't a good kid. I just didn't know I was a bad kid. I was just confused. So he would say, don't do that, and I would ask, why? Why? Why shouldn't I do that? Seems like a good idea. I don't know about you guys, but I have these voices. They live in my head. I'm 34 years sober, and I still have these voices. They live in my head, and they tell me good ideas. They're like, hey, maybe you should do this. And I'm like, no, that's not a good idea. Then the next voice expands on it. And by the time I get to the third voice, I'm actually talking to myself going, you know, that's not that bad of an idea. You know, it's not that bad. That's what happened all before I got sober. You know, and so this particular day, we're having a beer. You know, my dad's an alcoholic. I don't want to be like my father. I want to be kind and loving to my children when I have them, and I want to do all the things that he didn't do for me. Then I have a beer. And I want to tell you that the first beer went down, it hit the thing, and none of that happened. What happened was I didn't like the taste of it. But I was afraid of everybody else, so when he said, do you want another beer? I said, sure. So when I had the second beer, the first voice started. There was this guy right next to me. His name was Miguel Villanueva. I'll say his name to this day. Toughest guy I've ever met. And my voice said, hit him. And I'm like, that's not a good idea, bro. That's not a good idea. And then I took another drink, and then the second voice said, you should hit him. And I'm like, it's not a good idea. He's going to beat me pretty bad. I'll try not to use any bad words. He's going to beat me pretty bad. And the third voice said, don't be a sissy. Hit him. And I remember looking at him, and he looked at me, and then I hit him. And he just went like that. And I thought, oh, no. He didn't go down. He didn't, I didn't knock him out. None of that. And he just looked at me, and he said, hey, tomorrow when you're sober, because I was drunk on 2 beers, he says, we're going to take care of this. See, you could tell me things, but that's not what I hear. What I heard was, for the first time in your life, you finally had the courage to do what you've always wanted to do. And this drink made you do it. And it was crazy. I remember going home. My father caught me drunk, and he grounded me or whatever. And I just thought, it's worth it. It's worth it. At the age of 13 or 14, I was really good at softball, to the point that I was playing in adult leagues, and they were traveling all over the place. First time I got on a plane with them. And they would give me anything I wanted, so I just started a party. I just started to drink. And I didn't really like to drink. I didn't really like it, but I liked what it did. See, my problem is perception. I am a lot of things when I drink. I am none of those things when I'm sober. None of them. I didn't think I was attractive. I didn't think I was this. I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think all these things. But I put a couple of drinks in me, and I become all those things. You want to see the worst dancer you've ever seen in your life? You're looking at them right here. Couple of drinks, I swear I could win a contest. I know I could win a contest. And because I used to imagine this thing in my mind. And that's what alcohol did. And once it took a hold of me, I just started to drink. My mother and father worked their butts off to put us through Catholic school. And I thought that was a punishment. I went through 8 years of Catholic school, and then I went through a 4-year Catholic high school. And I just thought it was a punishment. So all I did was play sports and drink, and just do the things that I wanted to do. And I got through school barely. I actually, on the day of graduation, they told me they were going to give me a certificate, not because of my grades, but because of something that I had done. And I was like, whatever. I was in the 4th grade in this Catholic school, and this nun comes up to me, and she tells me, you're going to go to hell. And I thought about it for a second. I said, well, if I'm there, I might as well help. I might as well help. And that's the way I looked at it. I never wanted to be like him. I never thought I'd be like him. And as I got older, he just got worse, and so did I. And then at 18 years old, I meet her. I'm 18 years old, my day of my graduation. This crazy girl decides to go out with me to the drive-in theater. Never forget that day. And she's looking at me with such loving eyes. I'll never forget this. She's looking at me with such loving eyes that I'm only thinking one thing. I'm only thinking one thing, and I'm not going to lie to you. Second time, I'm not going to lie. I'm only thinking one thing, and I thought, how am I going to pull this off? See, I'm really good at talking. I've always been really good at manipulation. And I thought, how am I going to pull this off? And so we dated for a little while, or we slept around for a little while. I don't know what word you want to use. But somewhere along the line, I decided that I was going to go to the university, and I was going to go study accounting, and I was going to be an accountant, and I was going to work in an office. And as I'm going to school, I was there a whole year, and I got like 4 credits. Because I wasn't really good at attending it, but I was really good in the ping pong room. I was really good in the pool table room. I was really good at taking money off of these kids because I didn't have any. And somewhere along the line, she comes up to me, or she came to the house one day, and she tells me, hey, we're going to have a kid. And the selfishness of me, who I am, I'm upset at her. How dare you trap me? I'm 19 years old. What were you thinking? She didn't do anything. See, the beauty about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll just jump back and forth. The beauty about Alcoholics Anonymous is when I was able to look at my faults, when I was able to look at my inventory, I realized that 98% of the problems in my life are caused by me. They're not caused by anybody else. They're not your problem. They're not what you did. It doesn't matter what you did. It's the way how I reacted. And I always reacted bad. So she decides we're going to have this kid. And I'm 19 years old or 20 when we had her. And she's like, what are you going to do? If you don't move me out, I'm going to move into a boarding house and raise your daughter in some room. So I quit school. I take a job driving a van for $4.25 an hour, and we move into this little place. And I am extremely angry, just angry. And see, when I drink, you don't see it in the beginning. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm going to throw up at some point all over you. And I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about all my emotions. The throwing up, it's going to happen every time. And what happened is I got angrier and angrier at her. She had this little girl. We started our little family, and we used to have these pictures on the wall at this little apartment that we were at. And people would be like, oh, that's cute. You put your daughter's pictures up. And my daughter would say, no, that's because Daddy put a hole in the wall, and it's just covering it, because that's the kind of stuff I would do. I've never put my hands on any woman or anybody, actually, except that guy. And bleep that out, please, because I'm supposed to know. And so, that's the way I grew up. And every time I would get drunk, something would happen. I remember I was coming from the Renaissance Fair at one time, and she got mad at me about something, and I remember slamming the door, right? And my daughter's like 2 years old, and she's in her car seat, and the window shatters, and I get mad at her. How come you got me mad? See, alcohol was a problem early on. I just couldn't see it. I was at a party one time, and I offered this guy a beer, and he said this. He said, no, Javier, one's too many and 100's not enough. And I thought, what an idiot. First of all, I don't think I could drink 100, but at least we could do 10 or 12. I mean, why would you do all, but as I got sober, like everything, I started to realize the stuff that had happened and why it happened and what it meant. And then I just continued, at 21 or whatever, I won't talk about it a lot, but I was introduced to the substance, and I asked the guy, what's he going to do? And he said, it's going to change your life. And it did. I got sober at 26. 26, 27. But I didn't think that my life was going to get progressively worse from 25 to 26. And in fact, from 25 to 26, I didn't even care whether I lived or died. I had a really good job. I've always been able to sell. So I was selling for this company. I was making $16.50 an hour in 1986, 87, 88. Notice I didn't get a raise. 86, 87, and 88. Yet I was bringing home nothing. I am incapable of bringing home because I get this little voice that says on my way home, hey, this time it's going to be different. Just get one. Stop and drink one beer. Just one. And then the book, I don't know how the book knew this about me, but when the book talks about that guy at the bar room banging his hand on the bar saying, well, it's too late now. They're already mad at me. Why go home? I was like, dude, how did they know? I'm a firm believer, and this is just me, because like I said, I'm not a circus speaker. I am not any of those guys. But I believe that the book is perfect the way it is. I believe that it is still written perfectly for a guy like me. It tells me exactly the way I'm going to react in any situation. And I didn't see all that stuff until I got sober. So between 22 and 26, I just went on a run. And I'll tell you one more, I guess it's funny, but it wasn't at the time. And story. So I got sober in 89. In 85, my father tells me, do you want to go with me to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting? I said, for what? He says, I'm going to take a 1-year cake. I thought, you're lying. You're lying. And he says, I am. So I remember getting drunk and going to a meeting. And I went to this meeting, and I'm in the back row, and I'm buzzed. And my dad got sober in Spanish AA, and he got up at the meeting, and in those things, when they do a birthday, they do like the whole meeting for him. And he got up, and they gave him a 1-year cake, and he was so happy. See, what my dad did was, a year prior to that, I got to the house one day, and my dad was going to put his hands on my sister. And I know we're all scared of our fathers, but there comes that point when you're drinking when you're not scared anymore, just not scared. And I remember I grabbed him, and I threw him over the bed. And I told him to his face, you're never going to touch anybody again. And my mom kicked him out that day. 6 months later, he showed up at the house, and my mom let him back in. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, he's sober now. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. So for 2 years, I followed that guy every time he went into the garage. Anytime he went anywhere, I followed him because I knew he wasn't sober. Second year, he tells me, hey, I'm going to take a 2-year cake. Will you go with me? I said, yeah, sure. And my little brother goes, I'll go too. So my little brother and I go to this meeting. They ask if there's any newcomers, and my little brother stands up. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Bro, how much attention do you need? I'm sorry I wasn't there, but please. And seriously, sit down. You're embarrassing me. And so if you ask him how much time he's got, 2 years more than me. And he does. He's still sober. And I remember thinking at that point, maybe this thing could work. My dad was 2 years sober. I always knew that I wanted to get better. I just didn't know how to do it. And I always knew deep down inside that I was a good person. I just didn't know how to show it. Never thinking that Alcoholics Anonymous was going to be the thing that saved my life. You know, my dad got sober. He was about 2 years sober. And he says, my dad used to be a bullfighter in Mexico. And so we have pictures of him. And so anyways, he says, hey, there's a bullfight in Tijuana. Would you like to go? And before I can answer him, my sister said, but you can't drink. And I'm like, I haven't even answered yet. And she's like, doesn't matter. You can't drink. If you're going to go, you can't drink. Do you understand? I said, yeah. So we go to the bullfights, and I'm sitting on the bench, and it's my other brother, my little brother, his girlfriend at the time, and he says, hey, can you go down and get us some beers? I'm like, I can't drink. He's like, that's perfect. You're not drinking. That made sense to me. So as I'm walking down the stairs, the first voice says, hey, if you take a shot, no one's going to know. Then the second voice says, you should take a shot. It's going to be a long night. And so as I'm walking down, I ask for the 2 Coronas and a shot, and I take the shot, and I come back up. Before I sit down, I'm asking them, do you guys need another beer? Because once the phenomenon of craving comes in me, I don't have a choice. So I make another excuse, bathroom, whatever. I go downstairs, I have a double shot. The night turns into a fiasco. Bullfights are over. We're walking out of the arena. My father, my girlfriend, and my sister are standing at the door, and they're staring at me with disgust. And I'm thinking, I know it's never happened to you guys, but I'm thinking, what did I do? I don't think I did anything. Did I do anything? I think I might have thrown a pillow at the bull. I mean, nothing crazy, but did I do anything bad for that? And as I'm walking out, I realize I'm walking out with some other girl, and she's right here, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. And they're looking at me, and I remember they got all mad at me, and so I acted like a fool because that's what I do. And I got really drunk, and they're like, we're going to leave you here. And I said, all right, then leave me here. So as I'm walking, trying to get through the border, in those days you need a passport, they pick me up, and they say, and I'm really drunk, and they throw me in the car, and they drive me 2/3 of the way to or like 3 blocks from my house. And I don't know what they were trying to do, is teach me a lesson or something, but they made me get out of the car, and they said, walk from here. And at that point, I was living in El Sereno. It wasn't a great neighborhood. So this guy pulls up to me, and, you know, he was going to rob me. And the bad part was I knew him. And I showed up at the house 2 days later. And I get to the house, and my girlfriend's like, where the hell were you? I'm like, you were there. You seen them throw me out of the car. She said, they threw me out of the car 3 blocks from here. I said, yeah, but this guy was going to rob me. And she goes, what happened? I said, I knew him. And we went on a drinking binge and other stuff. You know, and that's what I do. You know, I used to play softball a lot, and I told you guys. And during that time when I was playing, I couldn't go anywhere unless I took my daughter with me. And this is my last story. And I remember going, and I had a drink, and I left her in the car for hours. Well, I did what I did. My last day is I went to a softball game on a Thursday. I got home on a Monday morning. I get to the door. The locks are changed. I knock on the door. She opens the door, and she throws a trash bag at me. And she says, and this is the only bad word I use, get your shit and get out of here. I'm 26 years old, making good money, and all I own is in a trash bag. And in that bag was a pair of Sergio Valentes and a pair of Jordashes. And I know some people that are a little older like me know what that means, but they weren't even in style anymore. I just had them. And I was like, and I'm like telling her, see, I bought my way into that house. I was really good at manipulating. I bought my way into that house many times with cards, with diamonds, with everything. And this time she said no. She said no. And I said the only word that I knew how to say, because that guy took me to that anonymous meeting, and he was in a treatment center in that hospital. I said, I will go and seek help. And she says, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So we go to this place. It was called New Beginnings. It's in Monterey Park. I get there, and I'm up for 3 days. I'm still up, and the guy does an EKG on me, and the machine's going crazy. And all I'm telling myself is, please don't let it stop. I don't want to die. And after he does all his interview and stuff, he looks at me and he says, look, I'm going to keep you, but it's against medical advice. There's no way you're going to stay. But I'll keep you. At least you'll spend the night here. And he handed me these 2 red pills. He says, take these pills and go to sleep. And I thought, dude, that's not enough. We're talking for a while. That's not enough. He's like, just take them and we'll talk tomorrow. When I woke up the next day, it was July 31st of 1989. And the first thought was, what the hell did you do? How did you end up here? What were you thinking? There's no way you could stay sober. None. So in those days, what they would do is they bring people into panels, and they brought this girl. I remember this girl, and she was sharing, and she talked about incomprehensible demoralization. Now, I'm not that smart. I don't know what it means if I Google it, but I know what it feels like inside my stomach when I leave my daughter in the car for 5 hours. I know what that felt like. And then she talked about stuff like, you don't have a choice. And I went, what are you talking about? The first step says that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is unmanageable, right? And early on, they asked me, why is it that you're powerless over alcohol? Because once I take a drink, I don't have a choice. At the beginning of the book, it talks about, showing you how to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. My problem centers in my mind. That's where everything starts. And that day, I told myself, I will do what you want me to do. I will do everything you want me. I will even say what you want me to say for 30 days. Because I was about to be fired. My mother and father weren't letting me in the house. And this girl does not want anything to do with me. So for 30 days, I will do everything you want. What I didn't tell you is, at this point, I've had 2 daughters. My other daughter was born 8 months prior. When she was born, all I wanted to make sure of was that she had eyes and fingers, because she shouldn't be healthy. And I remember thinking, why can't you do it for them? I couldn't. So I did this 30-day program, and this guy walks in and he tells my story. He says that he was so afraid of things that he decided to join the monastery and be a priest. I had never told anybody that. I went to the monastery, and I was there for a week, and they said, yeah, you're not priest material. Get out. Bro, get out. And I never went back. And I remember thinking, that's crazy. And I related to him. See, the beauty about Alcoholics Anonymous is we have to look at we can't look at the differences. We have to look at what's the same with us. We suffer from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. When I take a drink, it takes me, and I don't have a choice. And once that happens, the same thing happens to me. It talks about in the book. At some point, I'm going to swear that I'm not going to do it again. And then at the next moment, I'm going to think of how I can do it again. And that's what happened. So I did this. I went to this program. This guy comes in towards the end. If you're new in a recovery house, don't get mad. He says, hey, out of you 30, one of you might take a 1-year cake. So I looked at the guy on my left, who was my compadre Juan. We had become brothers in this, in this recovery house. Brothers. I said, bro, it's going to be me and you. Me and you. I've never seen any of them take a 1-year cake. And then they told me when I finally got my certificate and my chip, they said, hey, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's what I did. For my first year, all I did was bounce around Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to Spanish AA. I went to regular AA. I didn't like you guys. You guys had you guys were older. You guys had these rules like don't talk in the middle of the meeting. Don't, like that one now. I got you. There used to be old timers. I know that I know there's people that have a lot of time. There would be old timers that come to the podium with 3 cigarettes, one here, and one here, and they would just talk for 40 minutes, just talk, and you'd just be sitting there going, "Shut up," because they wanted to talk about recovery and stuff. I want you to tell me a funny story. Tell me when you ran over your girlfriend. Tell me when you whatever, right? Or your girlfriend ran over you. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's funny, And I would go to these meetings and I'd be like, "Oh, this one's stupid. They're talking about the steps. We're not going back to that one." So I go to the ones 6 months into my program. 6 months into the program, I'm at this place, and I like I said, I've been playing softball a long time, and this really pretty girl comes up to me and she says, "Do you want to play on our team?" That's not what I heard. What I heard was completely different than that, and it never happened. But I said, "Yes, of course, sure." So I started to hang around at this place called Los Amigos in Montebello. I started playing there 6 months, 9 months, a year, going to meetings, no sponsor, no steps, no God. Take a 1-year cake. My life sucks. Alcoholics Anonymous is a lie, and all you guys are full of shit. It sucks. And I'm like, I'm going to drink. It was better than this thing. I did it for a whole year. I expected a better job, a better girlfriend, a better. I hadn't done anything. And there was this guy in my home group that would talk about the steps. God, Lee. He would talk about the steps all the time. He would say, if you don't work step 3 and you don't make a decision, it's not just a decision, there's 4 frogs on a rock or something. And I'd be like, who cares about the frogs, bro? If none of them, story is, if one makes a decision, how many are there? 4, because none of them did anything. So, and then, you got to work step 4, or you're going to die. Finally, I got tired of it. And now I've gotten a little bit more self-confidence. So at the end of the meeting, I walked right up to him to tell him. He had actually run over his friend, and it was a funny story. So I said, if you're not going to share that story, please stop sharing. You're boring all of us. I'm talking for the group right here. They just don't have the courage to tell you, but you're boring. And so what I did was, what came out of my mouth was, "Would you help me?" And he's one of those sponsors, the kind that don't take any crap. And he looked me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Are you willing to go to any length?" And the first voice said, "Are we going to have to kiss?" And the second voice is always a little calmer. He's like, "Are we going to tell anybody?" And true story. And I thought, I want to get sober. I want this thing. I'll do it. And so he says, "You're going to come to my house, and we're going to read the book. And as we read the book, we're going to get to a step. As we get to a step, we're going to work it. You okay with that?" "Yeah." "You get 2 times to miss. You miss 2 times, you're out. I don't have time to play with you. I can help other people." And I'm like, damn, they take this thing serious. Shit. So I did. I did what he wanted. And I mean, not to talk about that much, but I'll tell you 2 funny stories. So the first one was we get to step 3, right? And if you're new, step 3 is when you make a decision to turn your life over to the care of God. So he goes, "We're going to work step 3. And he's a very kind man, loving man. And he grabs my hand really gingerly. I thought, this is what we make out. And he goes, "Kneel down." I thought, so we could be at eye level. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. My life's gotten good in those 3 months. I'll do whatever. And we did step 3. And he told me, he said, "Hey, we're going to do step 4. We're going to do it right out of the book. This is the way the book tells you, except that you're a damn liar. So we're going to talk about your lies. We're going to try to free you up, to be who you're supposed to be." He says, "The book says that you could tell a drunk or a priest or anything like that, but you're way too sick for that. You're going to tell me. So when you do the stupid things that you're going to do, I can tell you, stop doing them." And I thought, I'm not going to do any stupid. He was right. He was way right. 2 years sober, I'd worked for this company. The owner's wife had gotten sick, and she was dying of cancer. Before I got sober, he asked me to come in and open up the shop. I said, of course I will. I've always had a good heart. It's just once I take a drink, it all goes to hell. And I took a drink. I show up 3 days later like I usually do. And, he didn't say anything. The woman died. I got sober shortly after that. And so I go to make my amends to him. And we're both, this is true, we're both in the urinal. I'm already peeing. He walks up, he starts peeing. and then we both stop at the same time. And I thought, damn, my sponsor told me that there's going to come a time where everything's going to be silent and everything's going to calm down, and that's when you do it. I thought that was the time. So I thought, all right, just don't look down. And so I looked at him, and I said, Andy, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous now, and I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I don't live that way anymore. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you? And he said, before she died, she made me promise not to fire you. She said if I waited long enough, I was going to see something great happen in your life. See, my whole life was based on me looking down. I can't look at you in the eyes. I have never been able to look at you in the eyes because of what I had done. So my head was always down. And at that moment, something weird happened and my eyes came up and I was able to look at him in the eyes and I was free. See, if you don't think these steps work, they're the most amazing thing that can happen to you. Because after you do them all, you find a God. And that's the craziest thing is I got 12 years of Catholic school. I have no desire for God. All he did was punish me. All he did was be mean to me. All he did was take my grandmother when I prayed that I told him, I swear to God, I will be good. Just keep her here. I made so many deals with him that he didn't live up to. Why would I want to go to him now? But I didn't go to him. What happened was I continued to work the steps. And at some point, he came to me. And it was crazy. Next thing I know, I'm 3 years sober. And my sponsor tells me, most people get drunk between 3 and 5 years. And I didn't really like him that much. So I thought I was going to stay sober for 5 years just to piss you off. For no other reason, right? Because I would tell him stuff like, oh, it's because I'm alcoholic. And he would say, no, it's because you're an asshole. And because, if you're new, that's a really good excuse early on. It's because I'm alcoholic. No. And he wouldn't buy that. He'd say no. And I kept doing the deal. 5 years sober, the woman that kicked me out tells me, hey, I want you to pay for a wedding. And I'm like, listen, me and you, I've done a lot of harm to you, and I'm sorry for that. And this is how I'm paying you back. I've been really good for 5 years, but why don't I just buy you a car? She's like, no, you're paying for this wedding. I'm like, take the car. It's going to last longer. Take the car. She goes, no, you're paying for this wedding. And sure as hell, we got married. 2 or 3 years later, maybe it was 3. We're in the jacuzzi. True story. And she looks at me and she goes, hey, what do you think about seeing other people? And I'm like, okay, this is over. And the truth of the matter was, as hurt as I was, because for 8 years I'd been really good to her, for 9 years I had been really bad to her. Really bad. I turned that woman that I told you in the beginning that looked at me with kindness and love into somebody that when she would look at me, she just hated me. And it had nothing to do with her. It was me. So I couldn't be mad at that. I couldn't be mad. What I was mad at is when I came home one day and this dude was sitting on my couch. And that's a whole other story. But I was already 10 years sober. And from 10 to 20, I just did the things that I was supposed to do. I traveled and I did all these things. What I didn't tell you is these 2 little girls that I had, I decided that I wasn't going to be their father. I was going to be their daddy. And I raised them. This girl, after we got divorced, she decided to go on a 2-year hiatus, which is great because it gave me the girls for 2 years. And I love my daughters, and if they were here, they would tell you that they love me. And I was able to do all the things I've always wanted to do. My mom and my dad didn't have a lot of money, so they couldn't take us to a lot of places. In fact, they didn't take us anywhere. But my kids have been able to do and see a lot of the world. My youngest daughter started playing softball when she was 9 years old. And if you ask her, it's parent abuse by me. But I got her a scholarship. She went to college. She played on a softball scholarship. She was freshman of the year, and she did phenomenal. My other daughter is, not to get anybody angry, but my other daughter is managing a Chanel store. She's doing really well. And so I think, you know what? I did my job. I was about 17 years sober, and it was about in 05 when all the properties were going up, and I was playing Donald Trump. I was buying, selling, taking. I was buying a property, waiting a month, refinancing it, buying another. Long story short, is I had a portfolio of like 5 properties, and then the market crashed. I owned nothing. I went from a black card to penniless overnight. I'm sitting in this little house in Monrovia. They're going to repo the big house. I'm sitting they've already repoed the 2 cars. They've already done all that. I'm sitting in this house, and I'm in the corner, and I'm telling myself, how did this happen? Greed. Simple. Greed. Simple greed. I said, now you have two choices. You could take your life, because I'm embarrassed the way what you guys are going to think about me, because I've lost everything. I mean, I'll tell you, because I'm an arrogant. When they took that Porsche, I was like, now what? Now I haven't mentioned God, because I got no room for God during 10 and 20, because that's the Javier phase. That's the Javier phase. And so I'm sitting there at 17 years sober, and I think, what are you going to do? You're going to take your life, or you're going to look for God? And I remember sitting in that corner, and I asked God, can you come and help me? I don't care what happens from this point on. I don't care if I ever become successful. I don't care what you do. Just take away this feeling and let me go on. And that day I started saying this saying, I'm living the dream. When you ask me how I'm doing today, I tell you I'm living the dream. And I just acted as if until it became part of it. 20 years sober, I take a cake, and I ask my sponsors, got 45 years. I ask them the most important question you guys are going to ever ask. When does it stop? He said, when does what stop? I said, the voices. When does it stop? And he said, the day after. I said, the day after what? He goes, the day after you die, fool. You're crazy. And so, I just said, okay. And I just started to do the things that I was supposed to do around here. I've been able to do so many things. I was able to see and do the things that I've always wanted to do. 23 years sober. I've just come out of this really crazy relationship. I know you guys have never been in one, but it was crazy and fun at the same time, so you know what I mean. And I just come out of it, and I remember asking God, I just want to find somebody that I could be happy with. Somebody that could make me a better person, because I'm going to try harder. And I was on a dating app, and I showed my youngest daughter. I showed her two pictures. I'm like, this one was skanky looking. Don't get mad. And this one was nice looking. I said, and I'm picking this one, right? And I'm like, hey, baby, which one do you think I should go out with? She looks at me and she says, Daddy, why don't you go out with the nice looking girl? Maybe it'll be fun. Well, that's my wife today. We met up at a place. She walked down the stairs, and I remember looking at her and thinking, oh my God, I finally had everything that God promised me. And it was crazy, and we have a really good life. My two kids, on November 4th of, here's an Alcoholics Anonymous story. I'll go 2 more minutes. March 31st, 2012, my father's dying. He's going to take his last breath at about 6 o'clock. I'm sitting on the bed with him, and I hated him. My whole life, I hated him. And when I got sober, he became one of my best friends. He would ask me inappropriate questions at times, but I would just answer him and see what he'd say. And because he was old. He's old. And so I remember he's sitting there, and he's taking his last breath. And as he takes his last breath and I see him go to heaven, I just start to feel a pain that I've never felt in my life. And a guy I gotten sober with that I hadn't talked to in 10 years calls me on the phone, and he says, are you okay? I said, no, Miguel, my father just died. He's like, I'll be right there. We were at my mom's house, because that's where my dad passed, and he came to my house and he sat on the couch for 4 hours. Never moved. I don't remember talking to him. He just sat there. But the fact that he was there made me feel that ease and comfort that I would get from other stuff. And I just felt like it was going to be okay. Now, he probably went to the services. I don't remember, but I haven't seen him since. But that's Alcoholics Anonymous. The people that you meet early on, you don't ever know when they're going to come into your life. You just never know. November 4th of last year, my youngest daughter got married. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was going to be easy. She's my baby. She's mine. This isn't her mom's. This isn't his. This is mine. This one's mine. I raised her. She's mine. And she comes out in her wedding dress, and I have my back to her, and I turn around and I see her, and I just start to cry. Now, I could have missed all that. I could have missed it all. I could have missed my father's death. I could have missed my daughter's. I could have missed everything that I've experienced to this day. I could have missed it all by one more drink. So if you don't think that this is a big deal, it is. And I'll give you the secret to Alcoholics Anonymous, which some people might get mad, but here's the secret. If you're new, it's real simple. I swear to God, it's this simple. We just don't drink in the day that we're in. And it doesn't matter whether we do the steps that day. It doesn't matter whether we even pray to God that day. It just means that we don't drink in that day. And as we go along, we'll find all the other stuff. The problem is that we don't have the courage to not drink in that day. 25 years sober, I'm sitting in Puerto Vallarta with my wife. It's my 25th AA birthday. It's a beautiful day. I'm at a nice restaurant. Waiter's walking up, and I tell him, hey, my wife's really weird. She's not here, so I can say it. She's really weird. She's the kind of, she told me one day, she said, hey, can you go check the refrigerator and see if the beer's expired? I said, babe, the beer doesn't expire. She goes, no, it expires. I go, Roxanne, I've drank it hot with a cigarette in it. It's fine. And I know none of you guys have drank it salty. So, and if you have, you know what I mean. So, beer's not salty. Anyways, so she goes, can you go check the expiration date? I'm like, you're out of your mind. I am not doing that. It's everything I believe in. No, let them drink expired beer, and because I don't drink. And so the guy walks up, and I tell him, hey, what's the best drink you make? And I don't know what he said, because when the first voice said, hey, you're 25 years sober, you're in Mexico, there's like a rule, you can drink. And then the second voice said, hey, if we're going to drink, we ran across a guy at some point that tried to sell me something. He says, can we go find that guy? And then the third voice says, hey, we got some money, we can go a while. Then the fourth voice says, hey, how are we going to hide it from her? Because we got to hide it. And then the fifth voice says, hey, stupid, order an iced tea and it all goes away. So I ordered an iced tea and it all goes away. 25 years sober. I've never had the obsession to drink, but I have the thought. I've always had the thought. But the thought doesn't make it so I want to. You know, when I look at a commercial and they put that Corona thing on the beach and they make it look really nice, that's not the way it's up for me. I don't know about you guys. I end up naked by myself somewhere. And I know not you guys, but I do. I end up naked by myself somewhere, and it doesn't look like that. It's like it's never looked like that. I have been on trips where I haven't left a room for 3 days. Doesn't look like that. None of the pictures that they show you has my life ever looked like what I drank. You know, drink responsibly. How? How? You know, if you taught me that, I would do it. You know, but, you know, what do I know? I know this. I know that Alcoholics Anonymous is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I know that because of that, I found a God. And because I found a God, I talk to him every day. Every day I spend time with God. Some days it's a lot, some days it's a little, but I know that I can't start my day without him. And I do the things. What's my life like today? Every 4 weeks, I watch, I was going to say I have to. Sorry. You can bleep that. I watch my mom for 7 days straight. 91-year-old woman. 7 days straight. And working. I own a printing company, and I own this company, so I got to run that, take care of my mom, make sure she has everything she needs. And, you know, and in the beginning, I was so angry about it. I have no problem paying somebody to do it. But as I looked at it, I thought, you're not going to have your mother long. I don't know how long. What would you give when she's gone to have one more day with her? It's been a long week. I worked hard this week. I worked hard. I was off on Saturday at 8. Saturday morning at 8 is like freedom. I get to go home. My sister hasn't called her, and my sister's at an event which she's not coming home. And that's how she handles things. And as I was getting mad, I thought, you're going to get to stay with your mom one more day. I went to my mom's house right now, and I changed. She was all excited. And then I come here. What does that have to do with Alcoholics Anonymous? Everything. You never know how good your life can be unless you do this. And I know, because I'm living the dream. You know, I'm living the dream. You know, it's an amazing experience, man. You know, it's funny. My wife, we've been together like 9 years. And some people, like in her family, will have problems with alcohol. And she'll start to sponsor them. She'll start to give them advice. It's like, Roxanne. And she's like, what? I haven't drank today. And she's crazy, but, you know, I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to be asked to go anywhere. And I don't care. You know, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a family of siblings that all love me. We don't always get along, but they all love me. You know, and all I wanted when I got here was not to drink. All I wanted was for you to teach me how to not drink and use. And what I got was so much more. If you're new, please follow the suggestion of Michael. Find a sponsor, work the steps, help others. Your life will get great. Thank you.